Hello, welcome to your favorite bookish podcast, Fully Booked and Caffeinated. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Heather.
Today, we're going to be talking about My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, a heartwarming story of friendship and demonic possession. Wow. We're going to need our coffee for this one. So, Heather, what are you drinking today?
So I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and I got a nice large iced caramel coffee.
It sounds delightful. Caramel, you can't go wrong with
No.
the Dunkin' caramel.
They have this new flavor out. It's like brownie batter, but I don't like chocolate coffee.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great, but they're brownie batter donuts.
Donuts slap.
Oh, oh my God.
Yeah,
We need to pause. I need to go get a donut. No, okay.
I know. Like my mom drinks the mochas and she'll get it and it's just this dark ass
Yeah,
coffee.
it's like
And I
chocolate
can't do
milk.
it.
Like, which I like
Yeah,
chocolate milk, but not with my
but not in
coffee.
my coffee.
Yeah.
No, unless it's like the white chocolate mocha. I love that, but it's not like actual chocolate, so it's a little bit
Yeah,
different.
I'm not a fan of the
Just like the
mocha.
mocha. Yeah. So caramel is my go-to at Dunkin' all the
Yeah,
time.
you can't go wrong with caramel or butter pecan, but I know it's not that time yet. I'll relax.
Ooh,
Oh.
fall?
Summer, because it's their ice cream
Summer.
flavor.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so I have my usual Nespresso creation. I got a Scuro, which is just fancy double espresso pods, and a protein shake because, got to get gains. And that's that. So,
Gotta get gains. Gotta get swole.
cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so first let's talk about Grady Hendrix. He has a very extensive history of writing. He's done a lot of journalism, some for the New York Post. He actually wrote for Playboy a couple times. He was a film critic for the New York Sun when that was a thing. He's done some screenwriting on quite a few projects, none that I was really familiar with, but quite a few. And he's contributed to a lot of different works by other authors. He actually co-wrote a graphic novel slash cookbook with his wife.
Wait, what's it called?
It's called Dirt Candy.
What?
And on his website it says that his wife has a restaurant named Dirt Candy. And I'm like, is this
Interesting.
real? Like,
Okay.
but I didn't want to know if it was real or not because I'm just gonna go with the fact that it's real. So we're
Okay.
going with
Fair.
it's fact.
Fair.
Most surprisingly, he was one of the organizers of the New York Asian Film Festival. He's not Asian, but he's really into Asian films, which is
Nice.
a huge thing, like especially Asian horror
Oh my God.
films.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the absolute scariest type of horror films. His work is ridiculously popular. His first really successful novel, Horror Store, it's basically haunted IKEA. That was that was picked up for TV, as well as Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires and the Final Girl Support Group. Those also have TV adaptations in the works.
Oh, they
Yeah,
do.
so all of his
Okay.
big ones, plus the one we're talking about today, has a movie adaptation, which we will talk about. He even had a podcast for a few months before Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires came out, and the podcast was all about like the history of vampires, and it was
Oh, that's
basically a
cool.
way to promote his book because
I like
yeah,
that.
he said that he hates the way that you normally promote a book, like going on a book tour or whatever. So he always comes up with these like obscure ways to promote his books. So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
So Grady Hendrix comes under a lot of scrutiny, specifically for his writing of female characters. I kind of fell down a rabbit hole on the book talk about Grady
Oh,
Hendrix.
enlighten me, please.
It's not so much in this book because this book is very plot driven, but in I read two of his other books, and his female characters are very underdeveloped. Like they're very shallow. They don't have a sense of community the way that women in real life do. And a lot of times, like their character traits, which actually we do see a little bit in this book, their character traits are like, oh, she's rich, or oh, she has anxiety. Like those are their character traits.
There's like no real depth.
Exactly. So they a lot of people say like you can tell that it's a man writing a woman. So I did see a lot of, women talking about that. In this book, I feel like since the characters are high schoolers, he kind of uses that as the reason for the lack of character
Hmm.
development because they have besides the whole like demon thing, they have very shallow worries. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so before we talk about this book, I have a very important question.
Great.
Do you believe in demonic possession?
No.
No, really?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think
Wow.
so.
Okay. I
I don't
do.
think so.
I
No, that's fair.
I believe that people, objects, houses, all of them can be possessed.
Well, I guess I can believe things can be haunted.
Okay.
So I don't know if I would go so far as to say demonically
Yeah. So you're
possessed,
thinking more
but
ghosts, not
I do believe in like
demons.
things being haunted and there being spirits, but I don't know if I can believe in possession.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I know what you
I mean,
mean.
I'm open-minded. I'm always
No, no,
open-minded
no.
about
Just
stuff.
don't be open to it. That's the
Okay.
problem. Don't be open to it. No, I know what you mean. Like you're more on like the
Yeah.
spirits ghost side,
Yes.
which I also believe in, but I think there are like bad spirits, which could be demons. I don't know. It's bordering on the
Yeah.
religious thing for me. That
I
that
see what
gets a
you're
little
saying.
fuzzy. Anyway, so now that we have that out of the way, uh, this book specifically came out in 2016, and the film adaptation came out in 2022. So we'll be talking about both, but let's focus on the book first. And you already know we got a Goodreads summary to start it
Always.
off.
We love good reads on this
We
pod.
we love Goodreads. Okay, so Abby and Gretchen have been best friends since fifth grade when they bonded over a shared love of ET, roller skating parties, and scratch and sniff stickers. But when they arrive at high school, things change. Gretchen begins to act different. And as the strange coincidences and bizarre behaviors start to pile up, Abby realizes there's only one possible explanation. Gretchen, her favorite person in the world, has a demon living inside her. And Abby is not about to let anyone or anything come between her and her best friend. With help from some unlikely allies, Abby embarks on a quest to save Gretchen. But is their friendship powerful enough to beat the devil? That is quite the summary.
It really, really is.
I mean, we it sets us up perfectly. This book is
Mhm.
about friendship. I really like the unlikely allies. Can't wait to get to that.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so we would be remiss if we didn't bring up the problematic themes in this book. So I say we should discuss them up front, and then we can focus on the story as a story. First and foremost, there are a ton of anti-gay and homophobic comments, racist undertones, inappropriate use of the word queer and spaz, but the real kicker, you know what's coming, Slave Day.
when I I actually blocked that out because that's not on my notes of things. But
Oh, it
when I
happened.
read
It
that,
happened.
I know because when I read it in the book, I texted you in all caps, just Slave Day.
Yes, yes. I was like, we'll get to it. Okay.
No, it's to me, it's not even remotely
No,
okay to
no.
even.
And the whole, like, he's trying to put the story in the 80s. Okay. Yes, that would have been a thing as well as the homophobic comments, especially in a high
Yes.
school. But
Hmm.
he wrote this book in 2016. He didn't write
And
this book in the 80s.
it's just not tasteful.
And the biggest problem for me is that it doesn't add to the plot at all. Like it's
No.
not this isn't a book about racism, so why are we putting that in there at all? Obviously the Slave Day thing was written in so that they could have that confrontation between Abby and Gretchen, which we'll get to, but it 100% could have been done a different way. Abby would have followed Gretchen anywhere, so they could have just had Gretchen like tell Abby to come to the bathroom and then start pressuring her with the makeup remover thing. Even in the movie, which we'll get to, they found a way around Slave Day. So
Yeah, they did.
it was just strange and unnecessary and trying way too hard to be like, this is okay because I'm writing about the 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just left
Yeah.
a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I literally I read it and I just couldn't grasp that this was something that was actually
Yeah.
written.
Yeah.
I get
For no
it.
real reason. And now,
No, like I get it. It takes place in a different time frame, but I don't know. Like the world we live in now and what we're trying to do
yeah.
as a country and trying to move past the shitty things that we white people did.
Yes.
Like why you gotta judge it back up? Even if it's just for something stupid. I don't care. Like
Exactly.
I don't
And
know.
the other, especially like the homophobic stuff, like the comments, the anti-queer comments, that stuff, they did feed into the plot because there was these undertones of you didn't really know the relationship between Abby and Gretchen, and they kind of insinuated that they could be, like hiding their true feelings or hiding a relationship or whatever,
Yeah.
trying to stifle that. So that part, I understood why that was kind of put in there. I still don't like it, but at least it had something to do with the plot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now that that's out of the way, now that we've just established that we don't agree with that,
No.
let's just move on to
And what cracks me up though is that they do Slave Day for like fundraising,
yes. And
which
oh,
makes it even worse.
and the way that they post the list and they have like
I
a market, I was like,
know.
bruh, stop it.
I know. And there's so many, sell some fucking candy bars.
Yes.
There's so many ways to make money.
The whole thing was just, I don't know. I don't know how that came
can't.
into the writing process. There were,
Me either.
they could have had a carnival just like they did in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Exactly.
Apparently I'm teen movie. Okay. Anyway, so main themes of this book are obviously friendship and demonic possession. Those are the main ones.
Those are definitely prevalent.
Yeah. There's some sub themes. We get a big thread of the difference in class and social status and how that affects everyone in the story differently based on their social status. And there's also the very common theme with high school stories where the four girls and Wallace will do anything to be accepted or liked, which is, pretty normal for a high school story. Any other themes that we missed?
No, I think you hit the head on the nail there.
All right, so let's get into it.
Okay.
The story starts with the building of Gretchen and Abby's friendship and basically just the backstory of how they are truly best friends. Other people have come and gone, but they've been inseparable since they were 10. And they do seem to have that true best friend bond that you have at that age. They do everything together. They talk on the phone every night. They basically grow up together.
Mm-hmm.
But we also see the difference in their lifestyles. So Abby is poor. She's at their school on a scholarship. She has very absentee parents.
Yeah.
Which were just such a weird... Every time that they introduced her parents, it was just so uncomfortable.
I know, because I felt in the beginning when they were kids, the parents were present in her life.
Exactly. And then the dad
all
had
of a sudden they just weren't.
Yeah, the dad had like a mental breakdown when he lost his job and then just like went from job to job to job. And then the mom, sometimes she would be so concerned and so not involved, but she would say something that would make it sound like she cared.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the time she was just like, Abby could be God knows where, and she just didn't care.
Well, judging from how they wrote her, the mom, it seemed like the dad was kind of, I wouldn't necessarily call him a lowlife, but he couldn't hold a job.
Yeah.
So the mom was kind of put in a position where she was forced to be the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
So she was just constantly working.
Yeah, she worked like 3 jobs. And
yeah,
just nonstop overnight. And he would just sit on the couch or sit in his shed with a bunch of lawnmowers. Just like what
fixing lawnmowers. Yeah.
But like he
that
wasn't
was like,
actually fixing them. He was just collecting
No.
lawnmowers.
He's just sitting there depressed in a shed wondering, how can I murder myself with these lawnmowers?
Yeah, and like how do you even learn to fix a lawnmower? That's never mind. That doesn't Doesn't
No.
matter. You know what? If you need your lawnmower fixed, I'm sure you could look it up on the internet. Anyway, so Gretchen's family or Gretchen's life is the complete opposite. She has a very rich, very religious family. They're super conservative and controlling of Gretchen and abusive, we come to find out, which that doesn't really go anywhere, but it is mentioned a couple times. But it's literally the exact opposite. Like where Abby's parents could care less, Gretchen's parents are overbearing, controlling, what making sure they know what she's watching, who she's with, where she is all the time, etc., etc. So, the story really gets going in the summer of '88. There's the four best friends, Gretchen and Abby, obviously, and then Margaret and Glee. And they all decide to trip acid in the woods, which is a horrible idea. But they're teenagers, so it's fine.
In the 80s.
Exactly.
And anything goes in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. But then...
Like, I remember when I was watching the movie, and Eric, my husband, was watching it with me, and he was like, it's so weird that people would just leave their doors unlocked in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know.
And there were so many serial killers.
I know. And people would just walk in and out of houses, no care in the world.
And
you just would do whatever you wanted.
They didn't have cell phones. Like, I mean, I hate my cell phone, but I cannot imagine not, like, they just couldn't find Gretchen in the woods.
No.
And they couldn't call her because she didn't have a cell phone.
No.
Oh my gosh, it blew my mind. So Gretchen gets lost, but like the way she gets lost is so weird. She just goes into the water and disappears.
So this whole scene was weird for me because first off, Abby sees this dark entity like in the woods or whatever. Like she gets glimpses of it, but then she kind of thinks it's like nothing. She's like, oh, it's the LSD or whatever. And then Gretchen's just in the water, which, by the way, she apparently jumps in and everyone thinks she died.
Yeah.
They're, like, freaking out. And she just wanders off and is completely ignoring her friends that are yelling for her.
All night.
Completely ignores them.
All night.
Which...
Butt-ass naked.
What I wondered, because this really wasn't touched on in the book, was this entity calling Gretchen to him to come to the abandoned shack thing. So, because she's literally just not, she's ignoring them. They're yelling for her and she's just not even paying attention. She just keeps walking and she goes into the woods.
That's a good
And then Abby
question.
follows. Yeah, because to me, if your friends are yelling for you, you would at least give some kind of indication. But she just completely ignores them.
She just like surfaces in the water and they see her shadow far enough away. She could still hear them, definitely. And then she just like walks away. But the way that Gretchen and Abby were, they wouldn't have separated like that. So that's actually a really good point that I did not think about. That's a big possibility. Because why else would she just leave?
That was like something I was considering when I was reading it. Because I couldn't understand why there was just blatant disregard for her friends because they didn't even know if she was okay because of whatever the tide was low or whatever. So her jumping off the dock, she would just hit, I guess, rocks or whatever. Or they said there was something in there that was sharp. So I forget what it was. But so I just was curious why that was a thing.
So are you one of those people who, when you read a book, you're trying to fill in the plot holes?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of that in this book, so I feel for you. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, so then they find her just butt-ass naked the next morning by some creepy, dirty shack in the woods, and she's pissed. She's like, y'all left me. When really, they didn't. They were looking for you all night, but, you know, that's all semantics. I don't know. So then we get the start of the demon possession cycle, I like to call it.
So I want to backtrack for one second, because there's one other thing I wanted to talk about. Abby also just doesn't bring up the fact again that she felt like there was something in the shack too. Abby definitely felt some kind of presence this entire time, this entire night, and she just never talks about it again or thinks about it again until way like later in the book. And it kind of blows my mind because when she realizes that Gretchen's also being weird coming up, she just assumes everything but the fact that she felt something in the woods.
Yes, and even though they took the acid, they all said that they didn't trip.
It wasn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they knew. So she made it seem like her mind was playing tricks on her, which, yeah, like, I get. But when she clearly stumbles upon this shack, she gets this feeling of fear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, like, there's something there she feels. And if I remember correctly, didn't it sound like someone said her name twice?
Yes.
So
she thought that it was
happens.
the acid.
And then it's just never brought up again. It's never considered when Gretchen starts being a wacko.
Yeah.
And I'm just...
And she goes,
again,
like you said, she goes through every other possibility before finally landing on that.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Which means that, you know, she probably doesn't believe in demonic possession either. But
no.
this was at the height of Satanic Panic.
Satanic Panic.
Which started in the early 80s and continued until now. But continued until the mid-90s. So this is really in the middle of it. So that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And, like, we see that it does come up again.
So, like, again, like, it just wasn't another plot hole for me. It just... a feeling was created in the book and then never answered.
Yeah, the whole whispering thing is definitely like, you didn't imagine a shadow.
Oh, God. Yeah. I know. And then, like, when you find your best friend there the next morning and she's clearly distraught and not okay, she's out of it. Like, I don't know. I think even if I didn't believe in that sort of thing, if I was that creeped out, it would be in the back of my mind.
Yeah, and I also would never have stopped looking for her, number one. And number two, then when they find her, they're just like, are you good? Oh, you're good then?
And also,
okay.
The time frame from when she was in the shack until they found her also didn't match up for me.
Well, because
I felt
it was an all-night thing.
They made it seem like it was so many hours.
Yeah.
But... and then I don't know. I didn't get it. Again, the timing just also didn't. That whole night was just weird.
I don't know
that
how
whole scene was weird.
You need with the demon. I'm not clear on...
She had to sleep with them for a little bit.
I'm not clear on the logistics of the demon possession situation.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about the timeline. But, you know, it could
No,
be.
and I know. But I just feel like the entire possession part that it happens, that just whole chapter just... had a lot of plot holes for me.
Yeah, that part was definitely weird. I could say that the whole beginning of the book, I was bored out of my damn mind. Once the demon possession cycle starts, I start getting a little more into it. Because Gretchen is just going through it. She just, her entire persona goes completely downhill. She smells.
Yeah.
She can't change her clothes. She says she can't shower. She's got crust all over her face and scabs, and she doesn't brush her teeth, and she just stinks all the time. She says that she can't sleep because she constantly feels someone touching her, and it's just completely escalating. Because at first it's like, oh, I feel something touching my neck. And then she starts saying things like, well, he this, or he won't let me do this, or, oh, I can't expose my skin because he'll touch me. Like, it's definitely escalating. And then
not one teacher calls her parents and is like, yo, your daughter's hygiene is not great.
Yeah.
She's clearly ill. What's going on? It's just completely ignored by all adults. Completely
Gretchen
ignored.
is untouchable. Completely untouchable.
Just nobody cares about her. Even her friends. Only Abby's the only one that seems genuinely worried.
Her other friends just
everyone else just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. 1000%. And even her parents are like, is it because you had sex? Like, what?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
What?
Her parents were the villains in this book, aside from the demon.
Exactly.
Because they pissed me off every time they showed up.
And also another plot hole. Because there was so much emphasis on her relationship with her parents, on how they were abusive, and how she literally wanted to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just, I mean, I'm not saying I wanted her to kill them, but I'm saying it just never comes to anything. Like,
there was the only time when she shoved her dad down the stairs. And that was the only time. But what blew my mind too was her parents took her to a doctor to see if she was still a virgin.
Yo, that is the most 80s thing I've ever heard.
And that is just a violation on so many levels.
And like, virginity is
because
a social
not for
construct,
nothing,
but...
Not for nothing, but like, she could have, you know, she could come off as not a virgin, not had sex.
Yeah.
You can break your cherry so many different ways. So she couldn't she couldn't have even had sexual intercourse.
But this is something that has been recently discovered.
Yeah.
That virginity is a limitation put on us by society. It's not fucking real. I know. But anyway, yes, her parents are the villains, and it's all part of their like religious whatever. So then the part about this part of the cycle is the animals behaving strangely around her. And before we get into it, once again, I'd like to apologize for the animal cruelty in another book that I have chosen. And no, we will not be discussing Good Boy Max, because I will not cry on this podcast.
I was so happy that the movie just totally didn't fucking include it.
Max doesn't exist. We're not talking about Max.
It doesn't exist.
But we can talk about the birds.
Kelsey.
The birds.
A pelican. A pelican. Where do they live?
They live in Georgia, right?
Are there pelicans in Georgia? Are there pelicans there?
That I don't know. But I don't think that pelicans are hanging out with owls, who are hanging out with crows, who are hanging out with the 30 other different types of birds. There were 30 species of birds, all in the same area, charging into this glass window.
But it was just the pelican that got me.
Just the pelican.
It was the birds got me. But then it was like, and a pelican. And I'm just like, a pelican? They're not near. Pelican. Just one pelican. And like seagulls.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, okay, maybe I could see the seagulls if they're, I don't know. Like, we live in a beach town, or we grew up near the beach, so I'm used to seeing seagulls and everything, but it didn't sound like they were living in a beach town. It was more like a lake town.
And where they were, I don't think was anywhere near water, because it was Margaret's house that was by the lake.
Yeah. Well, you know what? But didn't her parents have a beach house? Gretchen's parents?
Yeah, but that's not where they were with the bird attack.
No, but I'm wondering how far they were if they had the beach house. So I don't know. But still, a fucking pelican makes no sense.
Regardless, the pelicans are out for blood. I mean, we find out that that's because, okay, we don't find out. But
no,
apparently
it's never touched on again, nor discussed again.
The owls are discussed, but not the pelican. Just the owls. And from what I don't know that much about birds. I'm going to be honest. But I don't think that owls being around signifies all these other birds. So they just ignore... They talk about the owls. That comes up because the demon is like the demon of owls. I don't know.
What, that might be the demon's familiar in a way? Or how
the owl.
How it comes across. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And again, the dad just cleans up all these dead birds, and it's never brought up again. It's never addressed.
And she just like goes to school.
He gets pushed down the stairs, and it's...
And Abby is like, bro, you pushed your dad down the stairs. And Gretchen's like, what are you talking about? I don't know. So she slowly starts driving everyone in her life away. And the only person sticking with her is Abby. And Gretchen tries to confide in her, but she's not really making sense. And I mean, she's really not making sense. Like, I'm like, Gretchen, spell it out. Like, use your words. But Abby assumes she goes the whole roundabout way. Like you said, ignores the actual demon she saw in the woods. And she assumes that Gretchen was raped by Margaret's shitty boyfriend in the woods the night that they tripped.
When I read this, nothing that's wrong with Gretchen indicates a rape victim.
Except for the fact that her parents took her to the doctor to see if she was a virgin. That's literally it.
So if I have a crusty mouth and I'm not okay, I can understand maybe they're not showering and not changing your clothes, because maybe if you...
The PTSD,
I can get the psychological thing about that. But...
The birds? No.
It just... Oh
The
my God.
birds do not make sense with the rape theory, okay?
And then when when Abby tells Gretchen's parents,
Oh
and the
my
only
God.
thing that the parents focus on is that they took LSD, and then all of a sudden, Abby is shunned.
Wait, that
She
was
is
really
just,
heartbreaking though, because they were like,
yeah,
we always knew that you were white
yes,
trash, but we thought like we were doing you a favor by letting you hang out at our
yeah.
home because we knew that you don't have a stable home life, and you repay us by giving our daughter drugs
And it
and
was,
lying about her chastity or whatever.
I know, they just completely, and even though like Gretchen wasn't raped, the parents just completely gloss
Oh
over
yeah.
it, and they're solely focused on Abby being this hooligan
I mean,
that sold or gave her daughter
they would
drugs.
rather Gretchen be possessed by a demon than be raped.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
I just,
but it's all of the adults because then
all of
Abby
them.
is I didn't like the way that she handled Gretchen because she would just be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Just tell me what's going on." Like she just wasn't, I don't know, it was very weird the way that she
It
was
it was.
talking to Gretchen, but then she
Yeah.
switches into overdrive and she's like, I have to get help because now at least I know what happened. She doesn't know what happened, but she knows that Gretchen was raped. Okay, I'm gonna spring into action. I'm gonna tell your parents it didn't work. I'm gonna tell the headmaster of the school that certainly doesn't work. Certainly doesn't work.
And then all of a sudden, he's like blackmailing a student.
Oh my gosh.
Just the way.
And this was so, I mean, did you find this believable or
No.
ridiculous?
Ridiculous. So what? Gretchen's mom calls the school. Now all of a sudden, Gretchen's mom cares.
Yeah, like
And she calls the
how
school.
rich
It's just
is Gretchen's family?
when the adults are finally involved in certain parts, it's all when Abby's trying to save her friend. And it actually really pissed me off.
Yes.
I actually got really annoyed with the writing because every time Abby would try to help, it would backfire. And it was just
Yeah,
frustrating.
I completely agree because it also pissed me off that Gretchen could have spoken up or Gretchen could have said something. Like she could have gone to the headmaster with Abby and said like, oh, you know what I mean? Like just glazed everything over. She didn't have to go in
But I
and
kind
say,
of,
oh, I was raped. She could be like, oh, Abby thinks she's helping, but she's really not. And my mom
yeah.
overreacted. Like she didn't do anything. And I'm not saying that this doesn't happen, especially in the 80s when so many of these things were taboo to talk about. But the literal blackmail is where I was like, this is getting out of hand.
And judging from, I'm assuming Abby is a great student because she's on a scholarship.
Yes.
And if you're on a scholarship, you have to keep, I'm assuming, your grades a certain way. You have to be a certain standing citizen. So clearly she's not a drug seller, drug addict, or selling drugs, or drug dealer, drug seller, drug dealer, because she's a good student.
Yeah.
And she's never caused any trouble before.
Exactly.
So now,
and they immediately,
all of a sudden,
just because she doesn't have any money, they immediately jump to the worst conclusion. And I mean, that's obviously because Gretchen's mom called and probably said all these horrible things and did say she's going to come in and try to besmirch the name of my daughter and blah, blah, blah. But it was just, it was handled so just icky. Like it just made me feel icky. I did not like it.
No.
So then finally Gretchen turns on Abby, the only person who's still trying to help her. And she tries to get her to take her makeup off at school, which we know is Abby's biggest insecurity, is her very, very scarred skin. And Abby is like, that's it. I've done everything to help you. We're done. But also that lasts for one day because then the next day Abby's like, I'm gonna let Gretchen apologize to me.
But, and then here's the thing again. Gretchen comes back to school and she's this whole new girl.
No. This is the next phase of the demon possession cycle. This is the new Gretchen.
And again, no one says a goddamn thing.
No one says, she is living. She's got new clothes on. She's looking bright and happy and normal. And all of a sudden, these fair weather ass friends, Margaret and Glee,
who didn't care about her when she was in a shitty spot in her
did not care.
life.
They readily accept her back in, and somehow Abby is the one who gets
I,
shunned. And
I hated that too.
everyone is just so happy that they don't have to keep pretending that something's not wrong with Gretchen. Like
Yeah.
they can go back to, because before they were just ignoring whatever was going on with her because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with whether she did have a drug problem or whether she was raped or whatever she was going through, they were completely ignoring it. So now they're like, this is amazing. This is working out perfectly. Look, she's back to normal. Better than ever. Killing it. Literally. Now, did you see Jennifer's Body?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been a while, but I have seen it.
I was getting all the Jennifer's Body vibes. Two best friends who are definitely bisexual but won't admit it. Jennifer goes from gross to fabulous once she feeds on...
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
She feeds on the blood of men. But anyway, there's also very racist undertones and inappropriate homophobic comments in that movie. But it has become sort of a feminist cult classic in recent years because of the whole bisexual element and Jennifer feeding off of men to get her strength and power, which I can get behind it, you know? But I totally got those vibes and I felt like it was the same exact story.
That's actually, I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
And Jennifer's Body came out in 2009. So...
Oh, so you're wondering if he got his idea from this movie.
I'm just speculating wildly, but yes. I mean, it was so similar that, yes, I do feel like that. And I also have felt like that with some of his other books, too, that I read.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
I don't know. I got those vibes. But anyway, so now enter the Exorcist. Let's talk about the Lemon Brothers Faith and Fitness show.
Okay, I will admit that was probably one of my favorite scenes in the book because it was really funny, the innuendos that they just clearly didn't get that they were saying.
Oh my gosh. It was
I was like, okay, this is funny. I was like, I'll give you that. Yeah.
And I could totally picture, this was like the most realistic part for me, especially because I went to a religious high school.
Exactly,
but
right?
This assembly of everyone just like giggling and the teachers knowing what's going on, but they like can't stop it. And the Lemon Brothers are so damn into it that there's just no stopping them.
No.
This is one of my favorite
thrive.
parts. Yeah, like they were like, oh, everyone is loving it when really, you know, they were being made fun of course. But they're saying they get their strength from God and not steroids, which, okay. Just a bunch of juiced out bros breaking shit. And the youngest brother, Christian, focuses on Gretchen in the crowd and plants the seed to Abby that maybe there is a literal demon possessing her best friend. Finally, we're getting to this point.
But it takes 3 oiled up dudes showing up at your school to realize it.
Yeah, lifting a literal cross. And like we said, this was written in 1988, so it was when Satanic Panic was on the rise and really taking over people's lives. Like, of course, they would have a group like this that would, you know, talk about fighting demons and talk about all of the different devils that are possessing the youth and all of that stuff. It's basically like the DARE program, but with Satanic Panic, you know?
Yeah.
Like, say no to the devil type thing. Okay, so the devil... So this transition part where Gretchen is just chilling and living her best life, the demon has taken full-on possession now. Yeah. And is targeting all of her friends by feeding on their insecurities and completely manipulating them. I mean, this is where it starts to get dark.
Yeah.
Margaret with the weight loss supplement and eating like 3 carrot sticks. And then she's like, look, I cut it in half. Last week I had 6 carrot sticks.
Yeah.
That was awful. And then she stole Margaret's boyfriend just because she could.
Which also, I wouldn't want to touch Wallace with a 10-foot pole. He seemed like the worst character ever written.
He was disgusting.
But I mean, I get why Gretchen was doing what she was doing because she was trying to take away anything good from their friends. But also...
But Margaret was so insecure that she was like,
Wallace
senior boyfriend.
And he said some fucked up things about Gretchen when she was in the beginning of being possessed. And I just was, so I don't know. I don't know how they could even believe that that would even be a thing, considering all the bad things that Gretchen said about Wallace. Now, all of a sudden, she's like, oh, I want to date Wallace. So, again.
And Margaret just didn't care because all she cared about was losing weight, which is so sad and depressing.
Yeah, it is.
And then we get Margaret's just very unhappy ending, which is 20-something feet of tapeworm living in her stomach. What did you think about how Grady Hendrix wrote the tapeworm coming out of Margaret's body? What did you think of that?
It was definitely horrific. I'll give him that.
Disgusting.
But I was paranoid that the worm was going to kill the dog.
Oh, 1000%.
When I was reading it, when the dog came in and like was ripping it out, I was like, I can't take any more animal deaths. I literally cannot take any more animal cruelty. But then obviously it just pulled it out and whatever,
but also,
pulled the whole thing out of her body.
The dog, like, oh.
That's another thing. The brother's just standing there. Abby's just standing there, which I get it. I mean, if a tapeworm was, but that was
something else.
A very messed up thing to do.
Yes.
And and
it's surprising that it didn't kill her. Like they said, the doctor said she should have died from ingesting those milkshakes.
Yeah.
So then Glee, who we don't really get too much about Glee. I mean, she's
There's
really
not
a big character in this, but they do show how Gretchen also manipulates her and gives her these pretend letters from the teacher that she's in love with. And Glee ends up trying to take her own life. Like, it is just very messy.
Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, gets dark. Because Gretchen is more or less trying to kill her friends.
Yeah. And the demon, or Gretchen, they're interchangeable. Yeah. They really exploit the weaknesses and all of the elements of their friendship that are like sacred, like the secrets that they've shared, because obviously Glee is so quiet and shy, but they know that Glee is in love with that teacher.
Yeah.
And, you know, Margaret comes off as so confident, but they know that she's always trying to lose weight. Like, just these things that are things that you confide in your girlfriends about, and just completely exploits them. And then it shows that Gretchen is just, again, completely untouchable. Like, just going about all of this, making all of this chaos happen, and no one says a thing. No one says a damn thing.
No, and I felt like it was almost hard for Gretchen to find something to pin against Abby. Like the whole makeup thing for a hot minute. So I guess her way at getting back at Abby was trying to get her expelled from the school.
Yeah.
Because then, like, again, this was like another scene that was stupid. She took the planner.
Yeah.
Gretchen's like day planner or whatever it was. And her taking a day planner could lead to her expulsion from school.
Yeah.
And her parents get called in for this. And I just was like, this is so far-fetched. This is not believable at all.
Yeah.
This is, you have no proof of her being a drug dealer. Granted, she did steal something, but they're acting like she stole a priceless item, like her Walkman or something.
Or like money out of her wallet.
She took a day planner.
And
she took a notebook.
As if Gretchen would leave that evidence anywhere where Abby could get it, where it literally had like her writing help and, you know, the Gretchen within calling out for help. And
I just was like, this is not... But I did love her mom in that moment.
Oh my gosh,
her mom was a badass bitch in that moment. But then I felt bad because then she was kind of mean to Abby after. And
and Abby was finally like, oh my gosh, my mom is actually
someone's on my side.
Exactly, like someone's actually standing up for me. And her mom just kind of ruined it in that moment. So yes, I thought her mom was a badass, but then she just went back to absentee mother again.
Yeah, and the dad just can't give an opinion on anything.
The dad is a zombie. The dad may also be possessed by a demon. I'm not sure. It could happen. So I think you're right, though.
A lazy demon.
Yeah, the sloth demon.
Yeah.
I think you're right, though, because Gretchen kept saying, oh, he's saving the worst for you and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that was ultimately would have been the worst thing, like, in Abby's mind, if she got kicked out of the school and she had nowhere to go and she lost her friends and all that stuff.
Or I could see the worst thing could be Gretchen killing Abby.
Yeah.
The demon. Because it seemed like before the whole exorcism part happens, it seemed like during that scene with like Max and everything, it almost seemed like Gretchen had planned to kill Abby.
Yeah, and kind of said like, look, this is what I'm going to do to you type thing.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I could see the worst part being her murdered by her best friend.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a sense of betrayal in a way, even though it's not really Gretchen. Still,
but still,
it's kind
Abby
of
was
like
so trusting.
Gretchen would live with that.
Yes.
Even though Gretchen's kind of in the back of everything, she still remembers that she knows everything that the demon's doing.
When she comes out of all of it at the end, she says, he showed me what I did. He showed me what I did to Margaret, to Glee, to Good Boy Max, like all of that. So she would have seen and had to live with the fact that she killed her best friend. Yeah, the only person who was on her side.
Yeah.
So Abby decides it's time to take action. And she recruits Christian Lemon, the youngest brother who arguably has no experience whatsoever, but thinks he is just the right man to help. And this is what I have in my notes. Toxic masculinity with a little sprinkle of religious fanaticism.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty fucking spot on.
That's him to a T. So, what did you think about this exorcism?
Number one, it got dark real quick.
Yeah.
Again, another thing that just got dark real quick.
The waterboarding was a lot.
Oh, even the salt throwing was a lot.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, eventually, obviously, Gretchen kind of comes out a little bit. She was able to finally come through and see Abby, and she's like, just let him kill me.
Yeah.
Gretchen's like, I don't want to be here anymore.
And Abby's like
he's completely, and Abby, like, again, is just so, like, I'm on your side. Like, I'm never going to leave you. I'm never going to leave you. And then eventually, it starts out so a typical exorcism, the power of Christ compels you.
Going
whatever.
on forever.
So it's, and it's just, blah, 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 blah. Tell me your name, demon, and whatever. So it was fine. And then it just got weird. And then all of a sudden, Abby's telling Christian, like, you're going too far. Yeah. And Christian's like, I can't handle this. Yeah. He's like, I need my daddy. My daddy can do an exorcism.
Like, I'm just
like
gonna
that.
go get my dad real quick, because this.
And then he like explains who Andros is, and he's this whatever
the owl demon,
crazy ass demon. Yeah. So, but I know what we're gonna talk about next. And
what are we gonna talk about next? I was gonna segue right into when Abby takes over the exorcism.
Yeah. So
and she starts channeling Phil Collins. Her childhood crush, Tommy Cox. E.T. And pretty much any other 80s reference you can think of. And then at the end of it, she professes her love for Gretchen. And her love for Gretchen.
In a non-queer way.
Love you dearly, but not queerly.
Okay.
It's okay to admit you're bisexual. Anyway.
Yeah.
Her love overpowers the demon. And Gretchen is saved. But, Abby still has to face the consequences. Because you can't perform an exorcism on your best friend and then not be held accountable in a courtroom. Obviously.
I don't know.
Especially when you're poor. The justice system strikes again. So her social status fails her, obviously. And she's set up to take the fall, even though Gretchen is back. And Gretchen is trying to tell her parents, like, Abby helped me, and everything is fine now, and don't press charges against Abby. But somehow Abby is going to court for drugging her, influencing her, attacking her, etc. And then the ending I never saw coming. The exorcist waltzes into the courtroom, takes the fall, and we get another happy ending. Abby is free, and Gretchen and Abby stay friends, in quotes, until Abby is 80-something and dies with Gretchen by her side. Woohoo!
I just have a lot of problems with, number one, the exorcism. And we were watching the movie, and so Eric didn't read the book, but he watched the movie with me. We had it on, and he loved that the power of friendship was able to save everyone. And I looked at him and I was like, it's so fucking stupid. And he was like, no, it's really great. it goes to show how strong friendship is.
No,
And
no,
I'm like,
no.
okay, but no, you don't.
She was singing "We Got the Beat."
I was, oh my God. And I was like, so you're telling me the entire time she just could have
Said "I love you."
saved her best friend. Exactly. I was like, I don't like it. I was like, whatever.
I mean, yes, it goes with the theme of the entire book. I get it. Friendship overcomes
Which I get
all.
too. Yeah, completely get that.
And Phil Collins in spirit is more powerful than Christian Lemon. I get that also. Because
I can feel in the air tonight. It's there.
Exactly. And we got the beat. We got the, they got the beat. I get it.
Yeah.
But it was just a very interesting conclusion because this book goes from cheesy and corny and campy to extremely dark.
Yeah.
And then back to cheesy and campy and kind of fun. And then back to extremely dark. And it's just, I think we should jump to the ratings. You think?
You want to talk about the movie first?
Sure, we can talk about the movie.
Or do you want to do the rating first? I didn't know. I forget how we do this.
I don't know. We're new to the podcasting world. Let's talk about the movie because, okay, so the movie we watched on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
What did you think of the movie?
I mean, it was cheesy as fuck.
Yes.
Which I get because the book was also cheesy.
Yes.
So I completely get that. But they changed a lot.
They did change a lot, but I actually liked the movie better than the book.
That's fine. Yeah.
Because what we usually see when they're changing a book into a movie is that they leave so much out, and they did leave so much out, but I liked that the stuff they left out, they found a way to bring it back in. Like, they didn't have the whole storyline with Glee and the teacher, so they had Glee's story be with Margaret, and you know what I mean? Like, they still left a lot out, but they found a way to... You still got the full transformation of Gretchen and all the harm that she caused, but you got the highlight reel, and it was still like campy and corny and 80s. And the exorcism scene I thought was way creepier in the movie.
Yeah, I could see that.
Until Gollum came out and they had to shank.
I literally said to Eric, it's Gollum.
It was Gollum.
When it came out.
It was Gollum. I think Gollum is out of work and he was looking for his next role, and now he's a B-list actor. And they had to shank a wrinkly demon thing. So overall, I thought it would be worse. I'm going to be honest with you. Thought it would be worse.
See, I didn't like that they changed the storylines. Like, I didn't like that they made Abby be the one that liked Father Brown.
Yeah.
And that now all of a sudden Glee was the one, and then Glee was in love with Margaret. I don't know. I think from reading the book and then watching the movie and just back to back, because I literally finished the book and then watched the movie.
Yeah.
So I think it was just kind of a huge contrast.
I agree with I didn't like that Abby was the one who was in love with the teacher, but I mean, they really doubled down on the homophobia for the movie.
Oh, I know.
They really doubled down on that. And that was upsetting.
Which is interesting because they took out the love you but not in a queer way and changed it to Lilas, love you like a sister, but they kept the homophobia stuff in. Like, okay.
I was like,
like, make it make sense.
Lilas? Also, what year did people start saying Lilas? I don't know.
I don't think that was the 80s. I thought that
later.
Was the 90s. Yeah. Because I remember, that was a thing that you would sign off with your writing notes to your friends. So I did that. So I think that's kind of, that wasn't the 80s.
Yeah. And it was also the way that they were openly holding hands, openly touching each other and stuff. It was different than the book in that way. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't afraid of appearing queer. Whereas in the book they were.
But I loved the actor that played Christian Lemon.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You could not. I love him as an actor. I've seen him in a couple things. So I never watched Veronica Mars, but I know he was a big character on Veronica Mars.
Okay.
The actor that played, he's the only actor I knew in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think I know anyone.
So I know the girl that played Abby, Elsie Fisher, she got popular because she did a Bo Burnham movie a couple years ago that was really, really popular. It was called, oh God, I can't remember what it's called. But it was like a fourth grade or something. I don't know. But it was like he did a whole movie and she was in it and it was super, super popular. But I loved
I
Christian
thought
Lemon.
they
But I
were
also,
done really well. I thought that the
yeah,
Lemon Fitness brothers were done really well.
yeah.
And I
Uh-huh.
liked their part in the movie.
And I like that the scene of him and Abby in the mall was word for word what was in the book.
Yeah. Except for the
He
yogurt
was
instead
like,
of the corn dogs.
yeah, yeah, but everything he said, I can remember him saying in the book. Like, because he was talking, oh God, what did he talk about? He said something about, oh, like, do you know what PMS
Yeah.
is?
Oh, yeah.
He was
He's like,
like,
you know
yeah,
what
I'm
that is,
16. He's
right?
like, okay, good, okay,
Okay.
good, good. And I'm like, oh, like, this was like in the book.
Yeah.
But I really liked him. The exorcism part was pretty cool. I liked the exorcism part. It was weird that they changed that too, where the demon could change its like shapeshift into a different
Yeah.
person and was his dead mom, which was never, not even a
Oh, I
thing in the
forgot
book.
about that. That was
That
very
was like not
weird.
even a thing in the book at all. And so all of a sudden he
Yeah.
has like a dead mom, and then that's what makes him go crazy and leave.
Yeah.
And then the whole like the ending to the movie wasn't remotely the ending in the book.
No.
They didn't get caught.
And then she just
It
moves
wasn't,
away.
she's just fine. And it though she's just fine.
She's just fine.
She's perfectly normal. And so it was similar but so different
Yeah.
in the book.
I liked the middle. I didn't like the beginning or the end of the movie. Like I thought how they changed it from the little creepy shack into that like haunted house. Basically,
Yeah.
that was a lot. I mean, I think it was better visually for a movie than just like a tiny little shack, but it took up a big portion of the movie that it didn't need to. And then, like you
Yeah.
said, the ending was so different. But I just liked how they squeezed in her whole transformation. They still squeezed in all of the things that she did to her friends, like to show that she was really ramping up and that Abby kind of had to stop her.
Yeah, and there was no birds, but there was a tapeworm.
Oh, and the dog tore the tapeworm out.
And just ran away with it, and I'm like, okay,
Just,
that's probably not
just
great.
ran away.
But
So, on that note,
yeah.
our rating scale
Yes.
for this
yes.
movie is tapeworms.
Oh.
Out of 5,
Good.
how many tapeworms are you giving this book?
I'm giving this 3 tapeworms.
Okay. Any extra explanation?
I just didn't love it. I didn't love the book. It had some moments. Like I'm not going to completely say that it was. Once it got to the part where they were doing the exorcism, I found myself actually, I think once Gretchen transformed into demon Gretchen and she was different and she was fucking up her friends' lives, I started to get into it a little bit
Yeah.
more. And then the exorcism happened, but then it got ruined when Abby was the one.
Yeah.
So I was just as I was reading, I'm like, oh, okay, I might give this a higher rating, but then something would happen. I'm like, oh, wait, no, like, I didn't like that. So it was just okay. I do want to read his other books.
Yeah.
Because I have heard good things about his other books. So I'm not writing him off as an author that I'm going to stop reading, because I do want to read his other books. This was my first Grady Hendrix book. I just didn't love this one. And I was so excited about it because I love the 80s. So I was excited to read a book in the 80s. And I think it could have been done better.
Yeah. I
that's
totally
just my
agree.
opinion.
No, I also gave this 3 tapeworms. I thought it was campy. It was kind of fun. I loved the 80s references, but everything was just so over the top. I felt like every character was a caricature. Like everything was just so unbelievable, but then there would be parts, like the dark parts, where you were expected to take it seriously. And
I agree with that.
I couldn't fully get into it because I couldn't take it seriously. I thought there was a ton of plot holes. They introduced all the themes, like Gretchen wanting to kill her parents, Abby's family. The part with Glee was rushed and kind of an afterthought. And I thought there was a lot of concepts that they introduced, like the satanic panic and the religious aspect and the wealthy people being able to get away with anything. But the whole book was just so exaggerated that I couldn't take any of those serious themes seriously. You know?
No, because I feel like you said, like, especially like we talked about, the adult parts were so they're not believable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of the book just wasn't, which I know it's not supposed to be like a real book, but I don't know.
And I think that might be a thing with Grady Hendrix books. Like his books are very plot driven instead of character driven, and there's not a
Okay.
lot of character development, at least from the ones that I've read as well. So I think that it is just all about the plot, but I think it kind of he had to pick either exaggerated and campy or serious, and it couldn't keep going back and forth. You know what I mean? Like that's where I kind of got
Yeah.
lost.
So, do you want to hear a funny personal story? That
Yes, is it about tapeworms? No.
no. So, I start this book and then it's when they're kids and the big movie at the time is E.T. Did I ever tell you the story about me and E.T.?
Oh, I don't think so.
So, it came, I don't know, I was born in 89, so E.T. came out in the 80s, obviously, but it was big for a long time. Like, especially like in the early 90s, it was still like a big movie. I was petrified of E.T. Like, petrified. My parents would put the movie on purpose because I would start screaming because I couldn't watch it, and they would just laugh at me because I was legitimately
And they wonder why
terrified.
we need therapy now.
I was terrified of E.T. and it became like a running joke. I have had the weirdest fears. I've been afraid of E.T. I've been afraid of Alf. Do you remember Alf?
Yeah.
The anteater?
He's also very racist.
I had an unrealistic fear of dinosaurs. Like, really
I
bad.
don't think that's unrealistic, Heather. I think that dinosaurs are scary. I think that's a valid fear, actually.
But I used to have a reoccurring nightmare that a T-Rex would come back and it would like demolish my home.
Okay.
And I would wake up.
Okay,
Like
now
it was
it's getting
it was a
crazy,
whole
but-
thing. Yeah, it was a whole thing. But like same thing with Jurassic Park, I wouldn't be able to watch it because I would like cry. Now I love it. Now I'm fine.
Wow.
But as a kid,
I
I just
loved E.T.
But no. Yeah, I know. It became like a running joke. So one time we went somewhere and there was, might have been at the mall or somewhere, but there was like the ET on the bike.
Yeah.
And it was a fake thing. So my grandma like put me on it and I was fine, but it was just this whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
I can't, obviously I was like 3 or 4, so I can't explain
But this
why
is
I was
also
so scared.
like the first chapter of the book. So you were probably like, what the hell is happening?
I'm like having like a traumatic going back to my childhood. I haven't even watched it since I was a kid, so I mean, I'm sure I would be fine now, but it was just this irrational fear that I had, and everyone loved E.T. because he was the sweetest alien.
The way that she talked about it was like, this was a cinematic masterpiece. Like, she was like, if Gretchen doesn't cry during the movie,
I know,
we're not friends. And I was like, wow, she really
I cried in fear.
You cried and screamed in fear.
So yeah, so I just thought it was funny. I started reading. I'm like, yeah, there was that time when my parents would put the movie on because they liked my
I
reaction.
need to talk to your parents.
Yeah. Anyways,
so,
just wanted to bring that up.
So your past trauma. Any other trauma that we want to discuss today?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Maybe another time. I'm sure
there
is more.
There's plenty more to go around. Don't worry.
Yes.
Okay, so that's all we have for you this week. If you like this episode, be sure to follow the show, rate and review on whatever platform you're listening on. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another book to review. If you want to see our upcoming reads, make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Fully Booked Calf Pod. Thanks for checking us out, and remember,
if you need us, we're fully booked.
bye!
Bye!